all students. I think we have worked hard in the last 13 years to do that. We're working for those folks in our student body who may want to go immediately into the service and may immediately go into a career. They may want to go to college. So I think we've got to be well-rounded in our approach. And finally, the thing that has interested me about being on the school board is the financial aspect of that and being fiscally responsible.
Good evening. I'm Beth Merrigan. I'm really happy to be here tonight. I chose to run for this school board when I knew it was time that I was able. My children were old and I was ready to serve the community. And I believe so strongly in education that I think the school board is the place where I can serve it best. I know that education can open doors for people. I know it's done that for me in my life. I was able to attend the United States Military Academy at West Point after I graduated high school, and that opened doors for me in the choices that I wanted to make in my life. And I think being on the Board of Education will allow me to just provide that door for students, the door that they want to go through, the door that they want to take in their path in life. What is that they are interested in, and the Board of Education has a role in how each of those students pursue their interest in the goals that they want to accomplish in their life. So I think that really spoke to me when I was ready to serve the community. Thank you.
Just go ahead?
Yes.
Okay. My story is somewhat similar to Paul's. I had 3 children that were in Scotts Public Schools, and the first thing I did is I became active in the Scottsbluff Booster Club, which supported the school district raising funds for various academic events, and eventually became the president of the club. From that point on, it sparked my interest in public education, and I had also, during that time, there were several people that were coming to board members expressing concerns about property tax and the cost of education. And I ran for the seat and was successful and obtained it. I've been on the board for 19 years now, and I served for about the last 7 years as the board president. And I think that, it's an important role. I think I have a history of leadership, and I try to bring that to the board. I try to run smooth, organized meetings, keep on topic, and get the items on the agenda done in an efficient way.
All right. My name is Eliseo de los Santos Jr. I go by Chico. Thank you for having me here tonight. What prompted me to run for school board? I volunteered in a variety of different places and organizations working with youth. But at the last place that I volunteered was at an outreach. I'm a USA boxing coach. It was there that I saw firsthand the things that kids are going through. We dealt with kids that were going through depression, anxiety, kids that didn't know where their next meal was coming from. I even had a few of my kids there that they thought suicide was the answer. And we were able to help them and get them the help that they need as well. And I thought to myself, if I can make a difference at a bigger scale, that's exactly what I want to do. So that's what prompted me to run for school board. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Todd Lewis. First, I'd like to thank the Scottsbluff Gering United Chamber and Government Affairs Committee for putting this forum together and for all of your time to help out with the process. I've lived here in the Scottsbluff Gering area for 24 years. My wife Stephanie and I have 3 daughters, one who has graduated through the school system, one that's just entered the school system, and one that's going to be entering the public school system. I am the owner and president of Bytes Computer and Network Solutions, and I serve on a couple of boards, United Way as vice president and the president of Twin Cities Development Board. So I have some experience in board memberships and leading. I have assisted in coaching girls basketball for the last 2 years, and I love getting involved in the community. My philosophy is to listen and learn, base my decisions on the information that I gather, and utilize that with my values to make decisions. I don't have a lot of experience in the education system, but I'm a quick learner, and I've learned that through the other boards that I've been on. It takes some time to get through, to get a good base going, to get your feet on the ground, to understand where you can make a change and a difference in what you serve. And so, much like everybody else has said here, I believe that the school systems are the heart of our community, and I hope that I can make a difference.
At Platte Valley Bank, we...
Anyways, let me move on. I think one way to face this, I know you mentioned, racism and whatnot, is we have to be upfront with it. I honestly feel that it's a culture change. Where do you start? How do you fix things? And that is, it starts with the building. It starts with the principal. It starts with the teachers. It starts with all your staff. Everybody has to be on board that they want to make a change. And then it will trickle down into your students. And then don't be afraid to confront the issue. If you see something, hold them accountable. Pull them aside, and make it known that that type of behavior is not tolerated. And like I said, I'm really glad that the kids now have a platform where they can voice their opinion. And stop time. Thank you.
I also agree that diversity is something that needs to be addressed in not only society but in our school systems. I also agree with Bob that things have come a long way from where they were 10 years ago, and we've definitely made great strides in that direction. We fear what we don't know, and understanding diversity in other cultures is something that's going to allow our students to be able to accept the cultures that they're going to run into, not only with new people moving into town, but possibly with where they go in their future jobs and careers, where they're going to meet much more diverse populations than what we see here in Scottsbluff. Creating a forum where these students can get together and talk about their cultures and the differences between the cultures and their values of their culture is going to give the opportunity for other people to learn about these diverse cultures that are out there. And what we understand, we will fear less. And I think that with the club being passed by the school board here this last meeting was a great thing as well. And I'm hoping that that club will go on to be able to educate more of the student body on the things that they learn from the speakers that come in and their interaction with each other.
There's many studies that show that diverse teams perform better, and that's just a fact. So when we get together with people who don't look like us, who don't think like us, we learn and we grow, and that's really part of the key. To expose our students, our faculty, our staff, the board members to new ideas, that's all part of education, that's all part of learning. We need to learn how to hear those voices. We need to give them a platform to speak, and I think that is what the school board has done with this diversity club. People are saying things that aren't right or that are ignorant. Well, then it's up to the Board of Education, it's up to the administration, it's up to the teachers, it's up to other students to speak up to that. And I think we have an opportunity to do that. I think we have a wonderfully diverse community, and I think that we have the opportunity to learn from each other. And it will take work, but I think we can get there.
I think when we talk about diversity, it rings a different bell for different people. We clearly, as you pointed out, have a very diverse student body. But diversity is not just about race. It's about gender, it's about sexual orientation, it's about a variety of statuses, stati, whatever the right word is. It's about socioeconomic differences. I think the first thing is that all of those issues involving diversity have to be recognized system-wide, from the top, that's the school board and the superintendent, down to every student. But the second issue, and it's a greater issue to me, is once we recognize the diversity, what do we do about it to be inclusive? It's one thing to know about the dynamics of diversity. It's another thing to figure out how to be inclusive. To me, that's really the big issue. We've got to include all students at all places, at all times. We've got to give them a forum to be heard, to be recognized, and to be respected for whatever their differences are. One of the things I want to see, in addition to the multicultural club, is I want to see education for staff and for students about things like implicit bias, inclusiveness, and diversity, and what it means to all of our students and our school board.
Thank you for your answers. Mr. Kinsey, we'll address this question to you first. When it comes to school financing, many districts across the state were very hesitant in embracing the idea of increased reliance on state aid. What's your stance on how to address educational funding and property tax relief at the same time?
Well, you know, we're kind of unique in Nebraska in that we are probably one of the lowest states in how we finance school districts. The majority of the states in the United States are principally financed by the state government. And Nebraska is unique that we put a significant burden on property tax. And, you know, I'm an advocate of pretty much all of it should come through state aid. And then that challenge is for the legislature how to do that. Because in our community, and it's sometimes hard to get across in school businesses, how significant property tax has on one of the main sectors of our economy, which is agriculture. And you know, the last year and a half or so has been really struggle for agriculture. And so when I contact people in the street and they see that we, you know, are not trying to control property tax, in their opinion, and they're looking at what their revenue stream is from their crops and, you know, and so on, or livestock, and we're the biggest consumer of property tax. So, you know, I think that the state, I don't know if they ever will, I mean, they've been doing it for 20 years, to my knowledge, trying to figure a better way to fund state government and school districts. I hope at some point they find something like, you know, there's a new tax, consumption tax, whatever, that Senator Erdman is speaking about, and that's something that interests me.
You know, when it comes to the budget, I'm new at all this, okay, and I really don't have, you know, a right answer for that. However, I do know that if I am elected, I would really lean on the board members to help show me through that process. But most importantly, I think it's, I mean, you know, they've entrusted us to handle the taxpayer dollars, and so I think it's very important that we're good stewards and that we make sure that everything is spent accordingly. So.
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Given that many districts this year resisted the idea of increased reliance on state aid, how do we address school funding and property tax relief at the same time?
So like Chico had mentioned, I too have little experience in the budgeting of the school board and the finances side of it. Owning a small business, I understand how finances are crucial to keep your expenditures down so that you can keep your costs down, and then keep your prices down is important as well. And that also reflects back into the government side, where we've got to keep our spending down in the school system in order so that we don't have to tax our citizens as much as we do. So I'm not sure how to get more funding from the state, but I would definitely be an advocate of that if that's a possibility, and would be an avenue that I would look at. But as far as the budget goes, I'm going to be as fiduciarily responsible on the budget as I can be, without sacrificing the needs of our kids, our staff, or the administration.
So obviously, you know, we're not a legislative body, so we can't change how the property taxes are assessed. I will say that the school board, I believe, has done a good job in utilizing the resources that they have. In August, the school board approved refinancing the school bond, which will save our local taxpayers $3.6 million. The tax levy in our community on $10,000 worth of assessed property, $131.53 goes to the schools. So in some ways, that's a small price to pay. And I understand that as you have more land, as you have more property, that valuation goes up. However, it's also important to understand that almost 1 in 5 people in our community live in poverty. The school system provides Chromebooks, lunches, counseling services, and college credits at no cost to those families. And I don't view that as a handout. I view that as an investment in the potential of every single student. So while property tax and the funding of schools is always going to be an issue, I definitely think that the best thing that we can do, the best use of taxpayer money, is to educate our students and our community.
In my 13 years on the school board, school finances and the school budget has singularly been the most confounding issue that I've ever addressed. We have a state aid formula that changes virtually every year. It's a moving target. Our chief financial officer for the school doesn't know well into March or April what the formula is going to be to determine what amount of state aid we get. That frankly is a ridiculous system. I, like Mr. Kinsey, think that we should be less reliant in Nebraska on local property tax and more reliant on state aid, and have a state aid formula that addresses each student equally, not address the districts differently, so that a district that's got more wealth or less wealth gets treated differently. That we just need a system that treats every student fairly, every student equally. Currently, our local taxes support 36.5% of our budget. The state aid is 39.5% of our budget. To have the burden on local taxes to support that much of our school system budget is really absurd. We need to move from our state legislature to change that, and that's the only place it's going to happen, because we are locked in with what we have to deal with.
I think what we're all talking about here is a real balance and a real responsibility that the school board has, both to the students for which we serve and the taxpayers for which we're receiving the money for these students that we're serving. And I think that balance is found through the knowledge that we're all talking about. And as school board members, we're advocates for our school and for our district. And so to speak to our legislatures and to talk to them about some of the solutions that have already been mentioned up here today, and say these are real things that we can make a difference, because it is different where we live. The agricultural land is more vast than some of the more densely populated cities, so we have a different problem that we need to articulate and advocate for. I think what ends up finding that balance for me is leadership. I think a person who is able to be decisive, to take in the information, understand the numbers that we're talking about, and make challenging, difficult decisions. We're finding leaders in those situations who can make those decisions even when they're difficult.
We are quickly running out of time here, and we've got a ton of more questions. So this one starts with you, Chico. We've seen a number of sexual assault cases involving adult authority figures and students placed in their charge. What should the district be doing to provide oversight and mitigate the potential for similar incidences in the future?
Most importantly, I just think that our administrators probably need to be out and about a little bit more often, just to provide that oversight. I do know that the school probably does some type of education, and just to be more aware of what's going on. I think, adding, like we talked about with the diversity committee, I know this is kind of a little bit out there, but I think that's also a platform for people to speak up. So I think that's a good opportunity. Maybe kids would feel, more comfortable saying, hey, this is what's going on. And then it draws attention to that, and then we're able to deal with it accordingly.
This is definitely an issue in the school system in light of the things that we've seen in the news and heard about. We've got a different culture of teachers coming through the system. You know, we've got a lot of younger teachers that are coming back to the area. We've got younger teachers that are entering the school system. And I don't know if they have a good understanding of the clear line of definition that has to be placed between a person in an authority position to a child. I think the school has done a good job since these events have happened of really locking down and educating their teachers and the administration on how to recognize this and take care of it, as well as instituted policies that will not allow for outside communication of teachers to students and not allow for students and teachers of the same, of opposite sex to be alone together in vehicles or on trips. So they've done a good job of moving that forward. Is the work done? Absolutely not. I think we need to spend more time addressing this issue and understanding it better and figuring out better ways to keep that definition there without losing the connection between the student and the teacher.
You know, obviously teachers are vetted when they're hired. We have policies in place to make sure that, you know, appropriate boundaries are set. And we have these rules for a reason. Obviously, people that would take advantage of children are, frankly, horrible people. The more that we can do to do training and education about setting proper boundaries, proper respect for each other, those are all things that can make a difference. You know, ultimately, it's a character issue, and each one of us has to, I guess, be aware of the people that we know, make sure that we have our eyes open, make sure that we're watching out. And you know, it's a tough time to be a teacher. It's a tough time to be in those positions where you know, it is built on trust and it is built on that time together. But obviously, we have to do things to protect the students at all costs.
Microphone. Mic.
I think the number one thing that we do is be vigilant. We need to watch for signs that are well known in literature. We need to watch for attempts by somebody to groom a potential victim. We need to authorize and empower our students to come forth when they have the remotest suspicion that something wrong is going on. We have rules. We've always had rules. There are always rule breakers. So I think what we do is we empower the students to protect themselves. We exercise the utmost vigilance to protect our students. And other than that, I don't think there's a lot more that we can do. I am not proud of the incidents that we had and we had to deal with. But at the same time, I will say that there was one perpetrator, and that's been one perpetrator that we've identified and known about in probably 15 years. Now, that doesn't excuse that. That doesn't make it okay. But it does not mean that we have a serious problem. But because it did happen, we need to be vigilant. We need to empower our students, and we need to take swift action if we have any clue that something's going wrong.
Well, this is my first time running for a public office, and so it's kind of new to me. So I guess the first thing I want to do is say thank you to everybody who has offered their support to me, and I appreciate it very much. If I'm elected, I hope that I do a great job for you. I know I'm going to put my heart and soul into it and commit to it 100%, and hopefully I can make a difference there. Public service is something that interests me very much. I definitely want to give back to this community that has given so much to me, and so I just wanted to say thank you.
I just want to say that I love education. I have my entire life. I have not stopped learning. I've always told my kids I don't see how anybody can ever be bored in this day and age. There's so much to learn. There's so much out there. One of my favorite quotes is actually by Plutarch, and he said that the mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be kindled. And that, to me, is the passion of education. And a good teacher can change somebody's life forever. And I want to be a part of that. I believe that Scottsbluff, both as a town and as a school, has given me a lot, and I see this as an opportunity to give back to that community. So I'm looking forward to that opportunity, and if elected, I would be a listening ear to every single person in this community, and I would do my best to represent every single person. Thank you.
I want to thank you for this opportunity, and I want to thank everyone else here. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to have 6 people running for these positions. There have been elections since I've been on the board where there were just as many people as there were vacancies. And I think it's obvious from what you've heard tonight that we've got 6 people who are very interested and very passionate about education in the Scottsbluff school system. I think that's something to be thankful for. What I bring to this election is 13 years of experience on the school board. I'm ready to hit the ground running again if reelected. I have been referred to oftentimes as the voice of reason on our board. I would like to continue to be that voice of reason and would appreciate everyone's vote.
Education is a place where people gain opportunities and where people find their next path in life. And so to be part of the process where some of our young people are finding that path, and to know that some of those same young people will be the same people sitting in these seats and being the next leaders and the next participants in our community is empowering. It's a wonderful thing to think about being part of those young people's lives and to know that those opportunities that we're able to facilitate and provide to them as members of the school board, to the administrators that we're working with, is exciting for me. In order to do that, in order to provide those opportunities, I think the board needs leaders. I think the people on the board need to be able to make the difficult decisions. They need to synthesize the information, find all of the facts and information, and be able to make challenging decisions. Thank you.
To reiterate what Paul said, I'm glad to see this many people here interested in the board. It used to be when the election for Board of Education, there wasn't one sign out in anybody's yard. Now the town is plastered with yard signs for school board candidates, so I think that's a good sign that people are interested in it. You know, what I bring to the board is the fact that I served on the board for 19 years, and I was the vice president of the board, and I also was a president of the Vaults Board, the alternative school, and been president of the board. During that time, we've been successful in passing 2 bond issues for the middle and high school and high school. We recruited and hired our current superintendent, Mr. Miles, and each of these processes involved conflict and controversy and required strong leadership and board president. I think I possess that, and I think that one of my attributes on the school board is I am the guy on the board that's not reluctant to ask questions and expect an explanation from the presenters and the administration. And I appreciate this opportunity to speak to all of you. Thank you.
I want to say thank you to everyone who has extended their hand in support. But what I'm going to say here is just short and sweet. I'm a graduate of Scottsbluff High School. I have 2 children who have graduated from Scottsbluff High School, and I have 2 that are currently students. I am fully vested into this school and this community, and I'm here to truly to make a difference. So, thank you again for the opportunity. And Bob, if you want to sign, let me know. Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Candidates, I want to thank you all very much for joining us this evening for this forum to inform the voters for this upcoming November election. And voters, when it comes to reaching out to the candidates, do not be afraid to do so to find out their views on these issues and many more. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
At Platte Valley Bank, we believe it shouldn't cost you money to access your money. That's why we offer free ATMs anytime, anywhere. Whether you are across town or traveling abroad, there won't be an added expense to access the funds in your Platte Valley Bank account. Free ATMs are just one of the great benefits of banking with us. Stop by to talk to one of our friendly associates to discuss what else Platte Valley Bank has to offer.
Initiative 429